Greetings, fellow detectives. Wizard Kitten here, bringing you a new build in my series Building Nancy Drew in The Sims 4. Today I am bringing you a build that was actually chosen by my patrons this week. So I posted a poll on the Patreon page for the channel and allowed the patrons to vote on which build they would like to see next. That I gave them from a list of 4 different options, and they chose Josiah Crawley's house from Nancy Drew, Secret of the Old Clock. So that is the build that you see coming to life before you today. When I went into game and I looked at kind of pictures and walked through my walkthrough of Secret of the Old Clock with myself so that I could get a lot of different views of Josiah Crawley's house, my immediate thought was, oh, this is not gonna look good in The Sims. The second I saw it, I was like, oh, Josiah Crawley's house is kind of a flat box. And then I was like, oh no, this is going to be really hard to execute well in The Sims. I hope I can do it well. And I kind of decided that the way to make a pretty one-dimensional house, I mean, the shape is not terribly complicated. The size is not terribly complicated. It's just kind of a flat, straight-edged house. The way I decided to make it more interesting was by really going crazy with the landscaping, and I love how the landscaping turned out on the house. I think it's so beautiful, so hopefully you guys enjoy that as well. Another thing about the house that I knew was just going to be difficult to translate in a way that I was happy with. I mean, I think it ends up looking actually quite nice as a Sims house, but when I was trying to execute it perfectly, because I'm a perfectionist and that's what happens, that's what gets into my brain, is that these recreations need to be perfect. But anyway, when I was in that headspace, I was noticing that there are so many different wall types on Josiah Crawley's house. So he's got like weird brick, he's got cobblestone, he's got the shingle pattern on the roof, and he's got colors that kind of clash with one another. There's just a lot going on. But when I think about it, I mean, that makes a lot of sense for Josiah Crawley's character. He was kind of a kooky old man, kind of a weird guy, so it makes sense that his house would reflect that, at least on the exterior, and I mean on the interior as well. It's definitely a kooky house. It's filled with all sorts of bits and baubles and knickknacks and lots of statue items. I rarely get to utilize the statue decor as often when I do builds, and I feel like this was the perfect build to give me the opportunity to really go crazy with all of those. Adding in the windows definitely helped to give the build a little bit more dimension too. I think I used more windows than are actually in Josiah Crawley's house in Secret of the Old Clock. I think I used more in the Sims build, but that's one of those little additions that I feel like is so minor that it doesn't necessarily change the feel of the house, and yet it adds a really nice detail to the house that makes it look a lot more finished, in my opinion. So I definitely went with that. I got to use kind of doors and windows that I haven't really used before. The windows are from the new Snowy Escape expansion pack, which I guess has been out for a while now, but it's the newest expansion, so it still feels quite new. And then those doors, which I believe are from Movie Hangout Stuff Pack, which I haven't gotten to use in a long time as well. I also utilized a lot of debug items for the landscaping, and I think that's part of the reason that the landscaping ended up looking so nice, at least in my opinion, is that the items just kind of blended in with the world really nicely. I built this in Brindleton Bay, which is easily one of my most favorite Sims worlds. It's just so farmy and cozy, and it's got these beautiful rolling hills and these sandy beaches, and it has the perfect mix of like a dilapidated feel while still also feeling very put together. It has that perfect balance, in my opinion, and that's kind of what I wanted to do with the landscaping as well. So bring in kind of more of an overgrown, not very manicured feel, and yet everything still kind of comes together in almost a very planned way. So it's overgrown, it's very bushy landscaping, there's lots and lots of flowers everywhere, and yet there's still kind of a plan going on. And part of that happens by using a lot of the same plants plants and then kind of just playing around with where they're at, trying to space them out evenly to give the build more depth and variation. That's something that I've really enjoyed learning about as I've been doing more and more landscaping. I really enjoy when it comes together in a way that I feel happy with. So doing a lot of the landscaping right now, just adding lots of bushes, lots of flowers, lots of debug items, although the bushes that I place all the way around the house are just standard base game bushes and are definitely one of my favorite ones. I absolutely love those bushes because they are a nice deep dark green color and they fill in space on builds so very nicely. So grateful for those. Wouldn't mind having more bushes that are just like those. Also wouldn't mind having more flowers like the debug ones that I used. We have some that are just in base game and art in the debug catalog as well. Just those low-lying flowers that are perfect for landscaping. I use some variation of those flowers in every single build that has landscaping that isn't supposed to be like super perfect and manicured. And even in those builds, I still feel like I still use a lot of those flowers as well. They're just wonderful. They're kind of my favorite. And doing a lot of the terrain painting helps to bring more depth and dimension to the landscaping as well. That's definitely something that I have found to be extremely helpful in bringing a successful landscaping kind of feel. So very happy with the way that the outside of Josiah Crawley's house turned out, especially since the arrival to Josiah Crawley's house is just so like romantic and fairy tale garden that I really wanted to try and capture that as well, because Nancy can walk from the Lilac Inn through these beautiful grassy sunny areas over these this beautiful stone bridge past the golf course, the mini golf course, and then you start to come up on Josiah Crawley's house, and the arrival to the house I think is really what makes it. So I wanted to try and capture that as much as possible. I also wanted to make sure that I put a bunch of fun random little gnomes and fountains in the yard, because I feel like Josiah Crawley would absolutely collect gnomes for his garden, and he would place them all about and get a lot of joy out of gnome collecting. Definitely wanted to include gnomes, which I feel like I don't use nearly as often as they perhaps deserve. It would be fun to get more gnome usage out of the gnomes in The Sims. We're working on the floor plan now, and it was kind of an interesting floor plan to figure out, because when we walk into Josiah Crawley's house, it's basically just one big long rectangular living room space essentially, and it's just kind of strange, and we don't see stairs, we don't see any other rooms in the house, and this one big long room it almost feels purposeless. It's got a desk in it, it's got books in it, and it has a lot of decoration. There's a fireplace, there's one rocking chair, but it's not like a defined living room. And there isn't a defined dining room. So trying to figure out how to fit more rooms in the house to make it a completely functional house and make it actually make a little bit of sense was a bit of a challenge at first. I really wanted to fit 2 bedrooms in the upstairs as well, just because it felt way too big for just one bedroom. I didn't want to have 1 bedroom and 2 bathrooms, so I decided to fit in 2 bedrooms up there. One is kind of a weird long shape, but I think it still works. This back corner is going to end up being the kitchen and dining room. So this is actually the room where when Nancy sneaks into Josiah Crawley's house and Richard Topham is working with a client, that is the room that he would be in. So I always kind of imagined when I played the game that he would be working with a client in some sort of like office space or maybe a sitting room. But when I looked at the floor plan of this house and how it needed to come together, it kind of needed to be the kitchen and the dining room just because there was nowhere else to put it. So I put the kitchen and dining room there, and I suppose that still makes sense for Richard Topham. He can still absolutely work with clients at the dining room table in the kitchen. I think that works out just fine. And then there's kind of like a little mud room through these double doors here. Again, I figured that would make more sense as kind of like a study or an office, but when we already have the desk out here, it wouldn't make sense to have a completely separate office space, nor would it make sense to have like 3 offices or study rooms in this one building. So I made that more of like a functional space. It's got storage and it has all of the cat items for Yuri besides Yuri's bed that is in this main living area. And the main living area is where we're starting first with all of the decor, because this is, of course, the room that Nancy can see when she visits the house. And I kind of imagined that this was shortly before Topham moved in to the house. So it's been cleared. The upper rooms have been cleared out a little bit. The bedrooms are going to be more simply decorated, but this room and the kitchen are going to have a little bit more clutter in them. So it's like Topham has maybe been able to clear out some of the items, but definitely not all of the items, especially in this living area, which we know has a ton going on, and I wanted to still portray that as much as possible. The space is also slightly smaller than it would be in the game, but I feel that like that tends to work out better in Sims recreations because then there is just less open, random, unusable space. So finding things to put on the walls and on all of the surfaces was definitely the biggest challenge. It's a very eclectic decorating style, and I decided to just kind of go with it. Usually that's something that kind of bothers me when like wood tones don't match or when brick patterns don't match. It just kind of irks me, and I want to fix it and I want them all to be the same. But I had to keep reminding myself, no, this is Josiah Crawley's house. And Josiah Crawley is not a super matchy-matchy, put-together kind of person. And when he decorated his house, he put in things that he liked. It doesn't matter if they go well together. It doesn't matter if the colors match. It doesn't matter if the styles match whatsoever. If he liked it, it was going in his house, and he was going to collect it, and he was going to keep it. So that's what I went with. I found as many random statues as I could. I did actually give Yuri his mouse too, which I really enjoy doing since that's like part of the plot of the game. Not the plot, but I mean it's something that Nancy does in the game. Definitely wanted to make sure that Yuri got his mouse. It's very important. And finding these bird feather paintings actually worked out perfectly because a lot of the things that Josiah Crawley has on his walls are like fish and insect plates and feather plates. So I use a lot of the fish. I use a lot of the feathers. We don't really have any insects that can go on the walls. We have insects that are in like little terrariums, but they can't really go on the walls. So just birds and fish is what we have adorning the wall space here. Really had to make a ton of use of the debug catalog for Josiah Crawley. He's not somebody who's just going to have standard things in his house. He needs to have a lot of really quirky, random decorations, and every surface needed to be covered, I felt like there needed to be as many things as possible. So your Sims will probably walk in here and be overwhelmed by the amount of treasures or trash, depending on how you view it all. But I just love how it all came together. I loved putting this giant robot in the corner because it looks pretty similar to the robot that actually is in the game. Of course, it's just a child's toy sized up, so it doesn't look exactly like the robot from Secret of the Old Clock, but I did my best. That's always the goal when furnishing spaces that we have seen in the game, is to try and get as many items that actually look like the items from the game as possible into the recreation. So like on this desk, for example, I used the pink Yarny stuffed animal as kind of a symbol of the pink elephant stuffed animal that sits on the desk. There's candles on the desk. There are tons of books just piled on the desk, a lot more sporadically than these books are placed, but similar idea. And then I suppose this would function as a dining table. There is in the game, there's like a parrot that's hanging upside down on a stand in the game. So I was able to find the owl statue, which actually looks kind of similar to the parrot, and I was able to put that on the table. The owl statue you get by completing the feather collection in game for the Cats and Dogs expansion. So if your sim scares enough flocks of birds, or if you send your pet off to go looking for treasures, or if you scare enough birds with your pet, like tell your pet to go and kind of like spook the seagulls away, they'll leave little feathers behind. And if you collect enough of the feathers, then you can eventually get this fun owl statue. It's kind of a fun little gameplay element that I haven't explored for a very, very long time. But I love how the feathers look on the walls, and I honestly wish they were just in the regular catalog anyway, so that they were easier to access, because I feel like I would use them for decorating quite a bit more than I do now, because right now you have to search for them, like really search for them, and it takes so much time. I wanted to try and make the carousel horse over in the corner too, again trying to get as many in-game items as possible. So this is your fake carousel horse. I used one of the like Spectre droppings as the base from the Sims 4 Paranormal stuff pack, and I used this base game kids toy horse and just sized it up, and voila, carousel horse. Spot the difference, I dare you. And then filling in with these boxes here, which are also in the game, just a bunch of random clutter everywhere. I decided to take out the lights as well, because the room is definitely supposed to be darker. It's supposed to be a little bit more dingy looking. And that's really the feel that I tried to bring to the rest of the build as well. I tried to make it almost cabin-y feeling, so that's why there's like wood paneling everywhere. It's definitely supposed to feel older as well, because this build is supposed to be in like the 1920s, 30s era, so it's not supposed to be modern. I don't know if they had stand-up showers in the 1920s, 30s in America. I have no idea off the top of my head if that was a thing, but in Josiah Crawley's house, it is a thing. He has a shower because a full bath shower combo would not have fit, and the shower is a lot more functional and useful than a bathtub by itself. It could easily be swapped out for a bathtub though. There is the window in the way, which is kind of why I decided to go with the shower. But I enjoy how like dark and kind of like not moldy, but like old looking this bathroom looks. So the way the tiles go together, the darker colors, it just looks very outdated and out of fashion in at least terms of like modern design. So I thought it worked aesthetically for what I was going for this house. And I was actually so happy with how the kitchen turned out. I kind of thought that this kitchen was going to be a disaster. I did not think it was going to look cute at all, but I love how it turned out. And maybe it's because I got to utilize the Country Kitchen kit set yet again. I feel like I've used it so much since I got it. Maybe that's what helped. Maybe it was just kind of the combination of really cottagey, cabin-y kind of looking things, so nothing really matches. Everything is just kind of strung together randomly. Honestly, it's probably just making use of a lot of clutter. If you can use clutter strategically, it adds so much to a build. It makes it look more realistic and lived in. Part of me just felt like the layout of the kitchen wouldn't work, because I had this one long wall that was really good for counters, but then the rest of it would have either made it a massive kitchen, or it would have to be kind of like a weirdly laid out kitchen with a table. And I really wanted it to be a weirdly laid out kitchen with a table, because I wanted there to be a dining room table in here for Richard Topham to work with his patients, his clients, or whatever they're called. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense given what happens in the game. So made it work, used a lot of the Country Kitchen decoration items, and that I am absolutely obsessed with. I think they're so cute. I love them so much. Regardless of what I think about kits and whether or not they're worth the money, I have definitely gotten $5 use out of the Country Kitchen kit set. I think the build buy ones that come out in the future, I am most excited for. The Create a Sim ones, I am kind of middling on. If they were to do a theme that I was super excited about, like I've seen ideas thrown out of like a prom kit, so there would be more formal outfits that would suit teenagers really well. I would love that. Or a wedding Kaz kit that would really expand the wedding dress options and the like suit options for male Sims, or Sims who use a more masculine dress style. I love that idea. I think that would be super fun. The first fashion kit just did not appeal to me. We have so many athletic clothes in the game already. Did not feel like I needed more at all. So if the Kaz ones can really hit my interest, then maybe I would get them. Maybe I would consider getting them. And now the ones I'm most reticent for are the gameplay ones. I was super down for Bust the Dust when it came out. I love that idea, and I mostly just wanted to be able to use vacuums in builds because I feel like they're such a useful item to put in as a clutter item. But it released with a lot of glitches, and maybe they've fixed them by now. I honestly haven't done gameplay in quite a while, although I'm really wanting to do some gameplay again. Maybe they have fixed that by now. So we'll have to see. If they fixed it, then I'm excited to kind of try it out because I just love realism in my game. I know not everyone loves chores, but laundry and vacuuming are just such a big part of life that it almost feels weird to me to not have them in The Sims. It just doesn't feel as realistic to live life without having to do those daily mundane things. But that's just my play style personally. And I totally understand why other people wouldn't enjoy that in their game at all. Perfectly understandable. But now we are moving on to the bedrooms upstairs. Again, kind of sticking with the worn wood, the paneled walls, kind of just old-fashioned looking in general, trying to find the perfect set of curtains, which is always a struggle. Always a struggle to find the exact curtains that I want. Eventually decided to go with these yellow ones. So this is the main bedroom, and the bedroom that I assumed would have been Josiah Crawley's. And in my head, the way that I'm kind of planning it out is that Richard Topham is like just moving in and has kind of cleared this bedroom out, so it's not nearly as cluttered as it used to be. I'm sure when Josiah Crawley was using it that it was extremely cluttered, super messy, very chaotic, not very nicely made bed, probably mismatched sheets and everything. But I think Richard Topham is a much more neat sim person. I think he would come in and he would make the bedroom much tidier, and that would be very important to him when he's overtaking Josiah Crawley's space, whether we believe he's allowed to do that or not. Completely up to the game and that subplot. But I had kind of a fun time just putting in just the right amount of clutter. Like we have the neatly folded shirts on the dresser, we have the robe hanging on a hook, we have the hamper directly next to one of the wardrobes. It's just much more clean and tidy, but I still like how it looked. Kind of, it had more of a masculine feel and more of an old-fashioned feel to it, and I enjoyed that. And then for the second bedroom, I was trying to figure out what it would be, and I kind of figured that Josiah Crawley would randomly take in lodgers pretty frequently. Like he would allow people to stay with him a lot. So I kind of imagined that the second bedroom would be more of just like a temporary little hotel room space, not like a B&B. Like he wouldn't do it as a business or anything, but I feel like he would be out at a cafe having breakfast, and he would find a couple people who he'd never seen in town before, and he would immediately go over to them and ask them for their life story, try to get to know them, and then insist that they stay with him, that he has the spare room, that he loves to invite guests to stay in. I could totally see him doing something like that. I really enjoyed that storyline, so decided to fill in this second bedroom with all of the accoutrements that would be needed for inviting random people to stay in your house. Not something that I would do, but something that Josiah Crawley would do? I think so. But we are nearing the screenshots here. Again, this build was chosen by my patrons. If you would like to support me as a patron, that option is available to you at patreon.com/wizardkitten, linked in the description down below. You can also find the link for the channel Instagram and Discord in the description, so you can follow those if you are interested. That is always an option. And as always, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more Nancy Drew and Sims 4 content. Thank you so much for watching, fellow detectives. I will see you soon.